Will a couple of big-time wide receivers be available for Oklahoma at Ole Miss?
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. He's Jay Smith. You can follow him at Unfair Sports on YouTube, on social media. I'm John Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at Sooners Wire. And the injury report for Saturday is out, the initial one. And Deion Burks is still listed as questionable. Brent Venables talked about him as day-to-day. Jay, what are you thinking is the likelihood that he's going to actually play on Saturday?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to say 3.5, 4. I know that he's day-to-day, but, those soft tissue injuries are, very iffy. And there's a tendency for something to accidentally get, re-injured, re-aggravated, re-inflamed. And so for me, I'm just hoping that he can get to the point where he can travel. And I want him to travel and play, but I need him to be able to play the rest of the season. So to me, I'm not holding my breath on any of these injured players anymore at this point. I've been trying to, feed everybody with the hope that we've had, but man, it's just the luck has been just awful. So I'm going to say 3 to 4. I am so hoping I'm pleasantly surprised while I'm standing there in Oxford, trying to survive.
Yeah, seeing's going to be believing at this point for anybody that's on Oklahoma's injury report, because nothing has come to pass like we expected it to at any point this season. If Deion Burks is back, what does that do, though, for Oklahoma's offense?
Oh, it changes everything. It gives you a safety net, someone that can get open quickly, catch the ball, and, either turn it into a big gain or at least make the catch. That's the thing that we've kind of struggled with, is holding on to the ball. Mm-hmm. The drops have increased week over week for the most part. But if you get somebody that can secure the ball, Deion Burks is the guy that will be able to do it. And it kind of gives you a little bit more confidence going into it. I mean, as we've talked about, ad nauseum here, the wide receiver room was going to be the safety net for these young quarterbacks. They were going to be the guys that's going to get open, get little holes, find it to where the quarterback can just get rid of the ball quickly, especially if they're struggling. Now it's about the young guys figuring out with the other young guys. They're all doing it together. So I'm hoping that we get somebody back that can play, and I'm hoping it's Burks. I'm really hoping that he decides to travel with the team and give it a go. But I'm just not holding my breath until I physically see him line up on offense.
Gavin Sawchuk also on the injury report. He is listed as doubtful after missing this past weekend against South Carolina. Brent Venables mentioned he had a hamstring injury, which for a guy with Gavin Sawchuk's abilities,
history,
speed, and history. Yeah, that's another one of those elements. I don't expect him to play this week. I don't expect him to get upgraded even to questionable. I think probably on the next injury report, he'll be listed as out. But yeah, the dude really just hasn't contributed much to you this season as it is. So you hate to say it's not a loss, because you want to have as many talented players available for you on your depth chart, but the run game has just been so inconsistent this year. Yeah. It's hard to know if it is a loss because of the offensive line play, a lot because of the schematics of the offense, but you hate to have a guy like Gavin Sawchuk just not be available. Where do they turn? Okay, it's Javonte Barnes and then Taylor Tatum, presumably, but the guy is struggling to pass block. So where do they go after that? Do we finally get to see Sam Franklin get a healthy dose of the offense?
Caleb Hicks. We saw him at the end of last game, and he actually looked good. He was hitting the holes of those zones. Can we get Caleb Hicks on the field? I would like to see more Caleb Hicks. Give me some more Caleb Hicks. We've seen everybody already. Javonte Barnes, he works hard, so he's going to be out there starting. Taylor Tatum does some great things when he's out there. He has his moments, as he's learning how to block and play at this level. So, you're going to run into a few things there. give me Caleb Hicks. I want to see the little power back and see him run through some folks. I would love to see a Mecca Megwa, but I don't know what that knee looks like for him. So give me Caleb Hicks. I want to see him run, and let's just see how that goes.
Yeah, we know that he's a talented and a physical player, somebody who can get downhill quickly. And that's what this offense needs, right? As much as we want to talk about Javonte Barnes and not being able to create big runs, big explosive runs, make people miss, we're at least getting downhill and churning out dirty yards. And that's as valuable as the big runs, because early in the season, we weren't doing either, right? We weren't creating big runs. We weren't creating dirty yards. Everything was at 0 or negative, or you're maybe getting 1 yard. And so what we have had in the run game the last couple of games, even though, again, not spectacular numbers, you're still getting positive production. So that's a plus. On the Ole Miss side of things, an interesting name to watch is going to be Tre Harris, Ole Miss's leading receiver. He's been a little bit dinged up the last few weeks. I want to say it was in the Kentucky game, maybe, where he got dinged up initially and then has kind of been battling through. He played in the LSU game, and he's just one of the best wide receivers in America. So he is listed as questionable on the initial injury report, and that would be a big loss for Ole Miss if he can't play on Saturday.
Yeah, Tre Harris is their main wide receiver there at Ole Miss, like by a sizable margin. He is that dude. And I remember Tre Harris because we tried to convince him to come to Oklahoma when he was initially in the transfer portal, when he was leaving Louisiana Tech. And so this year, 59 catches, 987 yards.
That doesn't compute. I don't know what that wide receiver production is.
It's a bananas number, right? You would have never heard
4 seasons worth of wide receiver production, right?
For us right now. For this year's version, absolutely. But this is even funnier. The second guy behind him, Caden Lee, 27 catches for 429 yards. He's roughly doubled this dude's statistics already, and both of them are on the injury report. So that leads you down with Juice Wells, who transferred from South Carolina, 17 catches for 371. And then you start going into some of your younger players. So for Ole Miss, losing out on potentially your 2 top wide receivers, and I think they're getting Henry Parrish Jr. back for this game, man, things could be a little iffy for them, especially with the way that our defense has played. If we put enough pressure on Jaxson Dart, could be some struggles on their side too.
Yeah, Ole Miss is a really, really good offense, but you take a piece like Tre Harris off the board, and that changes the game. I mean, that's
shocking. You lose your top receiver, and the team is not the same?
Yeah, It's crazy. It's crazy. I know we're not going to sit here and do the whole making excuses for Oklahoma thing, but it's a reality. Like, you take the queen off the chessboard, and the game changes, right? Yeah. It's a lot harder to play chess when you don't have your queen on the board. The same is true for Ole Miss and Tre Harris. I mean, he is their most explosive piece in their offense. They've got a really, really good running game, but Tre Harris has been the engine in that passing attack. If he's not available, I'm not going to say it makes Oklahoma's defensive job a little bit easier, but it just takes a weapon that they have to account for. And that means that they can focus a little bit more on stopping the run. They can play another guy in the box. Jaxson Dart's a great quarterback. He can run, he can pass, he can do everything that you want to do on offense. But you lose somebody like Tre Harris, and that's to say he might not play, but I imagine he'll play. Is he going to be 100% though? That's going to be a question going into this one. Any other notables on that injury report that you're watching here, Jay?
I'm keeping my eyes open on them is that Caden Lee. I'm kind of curious to see if they lose out on both of their wide receivers. That to me is probably the most important thing this week, because then again, at that point, that kind of gets you a little bit of there's no confidence here, right? We got to see this offense actually produce, but Caden Lee being one, and then Princely. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name right now.
Umanimelian?
Yeah, there you go. Princely's another one. He's one of their good edges that transferred in from Florida, if I'm correct, or Miami, one of the two. I know he's a Florida kid, but Princely is one that also has your boy a little bit on the concern side. If he ends up playing in this game, he could be a problem, but I'm hoping that he ends up not playing. That way we're just, we get a little bit of relief to where we can only focus on Walter Nolan.
Yeah, Ole Miss has got a really, really good defense. Again, you take a big piece off the board like Princely, and that could change how they do. He is the highest graded defensive lineman according to Pro Football Focus, the second highest graded player on their defense according to Pro Football Focus. So a big injury to watch this weekend, as we get closer to this weekend. Barry Switzer, a little bit concerned about where OU's headed and maybe the gap that's being created between Oklahoma and Texas. We'll discuss what he had to say coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets over at FanDuel. Right now, Oklahoma, 20.5-point underdog, according to FanDuel. I'm thinking the defense is going to have a chance to keep this close if the offense is somewhat functional in this game. If they can, that's going to be a huge boon for the Sooners. Take the under. Listen, Ole Miss can score. They've got a great offense, but they've put up big numbers against teams that don't have a pulse. So I expect the defense to be able to keep this one close. Go do that over at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. So Barry Switzer, the king, college football Hall of Famer, 3-time national champion, Super Bowl champion, had this to say on the Paul Feinbaum show about Oklahoma and Texas. He says, "We're short a lot of areas, Paul. We need help across the board, all across there. Defensively, we're probably better than we are offensively. We're short offensive line with running backs, receivers, quarterbacks. Every area of the offense needs help, and it's going to take a while to get there, but I think they can." Now, here's the interesting part. I don't know. I question sometimes with NIL whether we can or not, whether we can compete against Texas every year. They can raise more money than we can. We're a small state. We've only got 3.5 million people, and it's going to be more difficult than it is for the University of Texas, where they've got 35 million people. A wealthier state and people to be able to support the programs. We'll have to wait and see. Jay, what's your initial reaction whenever you saw that quote from Barry Switzer?
Sounds like the king is panicking. And I totally understand that with the state of affairs, he has a lot more access and information than I do. It doesn't truly feel like we're that far away. I feel like we're just this close. Tongue in cheek, of course. But no, coming into this season, the wide receiver room was supposed to be the safety net, and we didn't get that, and so everything fell apart. Now we're going to have to make sure that we put veteran presence at every level just to help save us going into moving forward, and Brent Venables understands that, and I hope that he picks up the phone and calls these donors to say, "Hey, y'all told me to do it with this. I need more. We got people with money. We have a lot of billionaires floating around here. Please open up your books. Help us out. Do what Nick Saban did. When Nick Saban was quote unquote taking shots at what Jimbo Fisher and Deion Sanders back in the day, everyone was grabbing all of those clips and sound bites that he was providing, right? Well, he was doing all of those at actual donor meetings. And so he's at these donor events where he's telling them, "Look, I need more NIL. I need more of this. I need more of that." And they started to listen to him because at a certain point, he recognized that Saban discount was not going to last forever. And for us, we don't have an Oklahoma discount. We've got to outspend Texas for some players. And sure, development is one that we can leverage. Certain players do see that. They're like, "Yeah, me and my family's good. I can handle not taking the maximum amount. I'm going to take this, get developed, and head to the league." And some players are good for that. But not all players have that capabilities. I mean, there was some players in high school that I wish we could have got our hands on that ended up going elsewhere because financially it just made more sense. And so for us, Oklahoma's going to have to do a good job of showing the product on the field while also finding a way to get some change in the NIL going forward. But the good thing, revenue share is coming. That's going to help a lot.
Here's one thing I'll say about the Oklahoma-Texas population thing. And it's a point that Kyle Umlong, Texas Longhorns social media account, the best way you want to describe it.
Yeah, we say that.
Made, is that Texas, yes, they're the biggest brand in the state of Texas. They're one of the bigger brands in the country. But as far as competing for influence in Texas, they're competing with a lot of Power 4 programs, but with Baylor and TCU and Texas Tech and Houston and SMU now.
Yeah.
And I mean, so there's a lot. And if you consider the Dallas-Fort Worth and Houston metroplexes, Dallas-Fort Worth in particular, I mean, that is divided territory. Mm-hmm. As much as Texas might have influence there, so do the Aggies, so does Oklahoma. Like Oklahoma, that's why Oklahoma can recruit in DFW, is because they've got a strong presence there from a fan base perspective. And so while, yes, Texas might have a much bigger population, it's not all 35 million are not just going to Austin and unloading their bank accounts at Steve Sarkisian's feet and saying, take our money and spend it. No, it's divided territory. And I mean, for Oklahoma, you're competing against Oklahoma State, quote unquote, competing. I'm doing air quotes. You're competing against Oklahoma State. You are the big brand. And while there might be a little bit of a division in the state, it's not 50-50. I wouldn't venture to guess where it's at, but it's not a 50-50 split. And you have influence outside of Oklahoma, again, down into DFW. Now, Texas has influence outside of the state of Texas, but if we're just talking state to state, Oklahoma stretches down into DFW. It stretches into Texas territory.
Yeah, that's true. And we've shown influence in a lot of those areas. And other thing to remember is we have recruited nationwide for years. Yeah. That is not something that we've ever had a problem with. I mean, Danny Stutzman's from Florida, for crying out loud. We've got players that have come from multiple different areas. I mean, even a transfer porter, Dominic Williams, is from California, via TCU, but we have done a good job with nationwide recruiting. The big thing is it's all about the evaluating and then the development. You're going to have to take 4, 5, 4, and 3-star players, and some players not even ranked, and then you're going to be able to coach them up to the next level. It's all about what that player is capable of doing. You're going to get some like that. You can't get 100% 5-stars. No team has ever done that. I mean, Texas A&M tried to do it, but they didn't finish with 32 or 25 5-stars. They got close. They got 9, but it's impossible. So because of that, the thought process is the Oklahoma Sooners are really good at recruiting everywhere. And financially, we've shown that we can spend. We've outspent some teams and won people. I mean, heck, I put it this way. Every time a player doesn't go to a particular school, they always say that the school bagged them. No matter what, Oklahoma has stuffed a lot of schools in lockers. So obviously, we're able to bag the people we really want, right? If that's how it works. Or you're saying that they go there because they can play immediately or whatever other excuse that's going to be thrown out there. My point is, Oklahoma has done a good job with their recruiting nationwide. And so I understand what Barry's saying. Like I said, he has a lot more information in regards to probably how things are working behind the scenes. People are willing to tell him stuff. They refuse to tell me. But if you want to tell me, you can definitely hit me up on the expert, right there below. Send me a DM. Same thing to John. We would love to have some inside scoop information on that, but I digress. If Oklahoma wants to see success in the SEC, go ahead and start opening that checkbook again. But the big thing is, and this is the thing that fans don't like to hear when it comes to recruiting. If we spend on a guy that everyone says we should spend on and he doesn't work out, then what? I like to trust the staff in their evaluations. The problems we have right now on offense is because we're young. It's not because we don't have talent. It's because we're playing a whole bunch of redshirt freshmen and true freshmen and true sophomores. We're playing a lot of younger guys. And then at the wide receiver spot, we're playing a lot of the 2s and 3s that we normally wouldn't be playing as much. So because of that, it takes time to develop, right? We're developing them. Let them grow. They're growing before your eyes. But I don't think that we'll have a problem with recruiting long term. I think that we'll continue to build these classes like we are now with big dudes that want to dominate and compete in the SEC. We'll see success long term.
I just need to see them have that success on the offensive line, because the offensive line transfer portal additions from this past offseason, Michael Tarkin aside, he's been fairly okay. But the rest of it has not worked out quite like anybody had hoped, given all the experience that they had coming to Oklahoma. If there's one area that you're looking at Texas and Oklahoma, listen, they've got the resources, but they also have really strong evaluations. Like they're not missing on their transfer portal additions.
Yeah,
Oklahoma hasn't really had a star transfer portal addition other than Dylan Gabriel. Dominic Williams has been good. Deion Burks in his limited exposure, limited playing time has been really good for Oklahoma. But where's like the star addition that's really stood out and been like, that dude was good and he came to Oklahoma and broke out and now he's a star.
I mean, you can go with Eric Gray, Tyler Guyton,
but those guys weren't considered like top transfer portal additions when they came to Oklahoma. They were considered like, if you're talking NFL draft style, like 6th or 7th round picks or undrafted free agents
with development
to Oklahoma. And they came to Oklahoma, got developed a little bit, and then broke out. Well, like you need to also hit on some stars. You got to go get some dudes that are ready to play right now. And Nick Scourton, which you weren't going to get because he was going to go to Texas A&M, but you got to be able to land some of those guys and supplement the development that you're doing. And this is across the board. Often, I mean, Deion Burks had that potential, but he's been out for the last 3 games. And so you haven't really had the full Deion Burks experience, also because the offense has been cheeks. So like, if you're going to spend on NIL, you certainly have to hit, but it's also got to come down to, hey, we've got to take some shots too. Like NFL free agency is not a risk-free enterprise. NIL free agency and the transfer portal is not going to be a risk-free enterprise. You're going to miss some, but you also got to swing some. You don't hit home runs unless you take a swing. It's the old line from Signs, right? They asked, you had the home run record, but you also had the strikeout record. And Merrill's sitting there saying, it felt wrong not to swing. I need Oklahoma's coaching staff to have that mindset. It feels wrong not to swing. You're going to miss, you're going to hit on some, but I bet you're going to hit on far more than you miss on because you are a good evaluating program. And so if you want to close the gap, because I do think that there is a gap between Oklahoma and Texas right now, because of what we saw in the Red River Showdown less than 2 weeks ago. There's a bit of a gap. If you want to close it, you need to hit on your evaluations and you need to get out there and spend a little bit more money. Another team that there's a bit of a gap with, Ole Miss. We're going to talk keys to the game, give you our predictions for Saturday coming up next year on Locked On Sooners.
Prize Picks is the most fun I've had playing daily fantasy sport this football season. And the best way to get into action is with Prize Picks. And the best part, they're available in 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Oklahoma. So you can get in there now, sign up today, and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even have to win your match. You'll get the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So, like I'm looking at it today, you've got Ashton Genty. Do you think he can get more than 193.5 rushing yards or less? What about Garrett Nussmeier? 284.5 passing yards, more or less. You can pick those. That's what I did. So go ahead, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports, made easy.
Again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Again, shout out to all the everydayers out there. Ole Miss, Oklahoma, down in the SIP, Oxford, second meeting all time. Their first at the end of the first season of the Bob Stoops era, a close little contest in the Independence Bowl, Jay. So what do you think is a key to this game as the Oklahoma Sooners go on the road to take on arguably one of the best defenses in the country in Ole Miss?
There's really only one thing, if you want me to be honest, John. Protect the ball. Turnovers. Turn the ball over, it's over for you. You're cooked. It's a done deal. Finito. Finished. We have to protect the ball. If we can go out there with Jackson Arnold and this entire offense, and if we get Deion Burks or not, if you even just play any of the current receivers, if Jacob Jordan decides he wants to show up for a second time, and Brendan Thompson gets open on a deep pass, J.J. Hester actually catches a pass deep for a second time. If they go out there and play and they don't turn the ball over, guess what? We have a really good shot of being competitive in this game, especially with Ole Miss losing some of their key players to, potentially to injury. We just got to show up. If we show up, we'll have a chance to do it. We just can't give them the ball. Then our defense needs to start taking the ball away. They're susceptible to turnovers. We saw that against Texas. They're susceptible to turnovers. We got a pick on the first possession. And it was looking like that first quarter was like, yeah, 3 Oklahoma, and then went all the way down. So to me, your key thing is turnovers. And I think turnovers is what's going to determine everything, because technically, turnovers is the reason why we lost South Carolina. If you take away those turnovers, it's 14-9. That's a lot more palatable in comparison to 35-9.
Yeah, it's a big difference. You take those 21 points off the board and another 3 because they got that field goal with a short field against Oklahoma. Yeah, Jaxson Arnold has to be really good in this game.
Yep.
I know you don't want to put it all on the quarterback's shoulders, but he has to be good. Part of that is protecting the football, but he's going to have to hit some plays for Oklahoma to be able to keep this thing close. The offense is going to have to come through. Ole Miss, the best rush defense in the country right now, allowing just 66 yards per game, 2 yards per carry. And again, they hadn't played a whole bunch of everybody, but they held LSU to 84 yards rushing on 24 attempts. They did give up 337 yards passing to Garrett Nussmeier. I'm not saying Jaxson Arnold's going to go out there and throw for 300 yards all of a sudden, but if you have a path to victory or even a path to keeping it close, Jaxson Arnold has to be good. And you can't have a 3 turnover day. You can't have even a 50% completion day like you did against South Carolina. You've got to find a way to get efficient offensively and make some plays in the passing game, because I don't think the run game is going to be able to have as much success as it has had the last couple of weeks. I think it'll get stifled a little bit. And so it's going to be a little bit more on your quarterback's shoulders. Defensively, what does Oklahoma have to do?
Not only get turnovers, but keep Jaxson Dart in a blender. Look, Lenore Sellers is one of the better scramblers out there in the SEC. And I mean, Nico Yamaliava can as well. Jaxson Dart be running. That He's dude, good. There's nothing deceptive about him and his speed and his ability to move. That dude can scoot. Like, take Dylan Gabriel, but add like a better 40 time. Yeah. Dude can run. He's good at scrambling. He makes good choices. Right. He makes good choices on that. So for Oklahoma, the key thing is don't let Jaxson Dart run all over you. Don't let him scramble out of the pressure. Make sure you're filling those gaps. I mean, take a little bit from the book of PK over there at Texas. Have a kind of spy there that finds the hole that would be the best place to run. Feel that bad boy and start running through him at him. That way he has nowhere to go. Hopefully you get some Robert Spears Jennings blitzes in there and get him to get on the backside and get the hit, or even the front. You don't want to get caught with him being able to move around a lot. That's what he's really good at. Keep the pressure on him. We saw that we're up there in some pressure stats. Keep the pressure on him, and I think you'll have a good game.
Stay assignment sound.
Assignment sound.
Stay consistent. Stay assignment sound. Keep that same intensity you had against South Carolina when the game was just away from you, away from the team. There was no chance that you were going to have a very hard time coming back in that game. So stay assignment sound. Keep your keys.
Yep.
Understand what you're supposed to do on the read option, because they're going to try and hit you with that between Jaxson Dart and Henry Parrish. And don't bite on every misdirection, because they're going to try and use misdirection to get you out of position, to get you over pursuing. And they just simply have to tackle. When they tackle well as a team, they're really, really hard to score on. It's when they lose their senses in tackling and they over pursue and they get undisciplined. That's when Oklahoma's defense can get taken advantage of. Can they slow Ole Miss down? We'll see. I mean, this is going to be a tough test. Ole Miss has played 3 SEC games. They're 1-2 in SEC play. Otherwise, the only teams that they've beaten are Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern. They were 4-0 in those games and scoring a boatload of points. But against Kentucky, they only scored 17. Against South Carolina, they scored 27 in a 27-3 win. And then against LSU, they only scored 26. Now, I say only. We'd kill for 26 points in a game. but they're not lighting up the scoreboard like the early season results would have you believe. So Oklahoma, just go play defense like you know how to play, stay silent sound, and hope that the offense can score a little bit. Jay, do you have a prediction for this game?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth. I'm saying 20-17 Ole Miss. I think that we keep the game very, very close, and we start to see progress on offense, and that's the thing that matters to me. If we see progress, I'm happy.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be – I think Oklahoma is going to have a chance to get to 17. I'm kind of with you on that. Maybe a couple touchdown drives and a field goal. But, yeah, I think Ole Miss, they win this one, and they win it convincingly because they need the win. They have to get on the right track in SEC play if they want to have any shot at making the college football playoffs. So I'm going to sit here and say Ole Miss 31, Oklahoma 17, and probably not a game that is particularly close in the fourth quarter, but maybe it is. You know me, I'm the optimistic one in Oklahoma Sooner fandom and coverage. I'm having a hard time being optimistic right now. And the 31 points, again, it could come down to a short field for Ole Miss where they get a turnover or a special teams blunder or something happens that gives them a short field and puts the defense in a bad spot. Just going to be a tough environment, a tough road game for the Oklahoma Sooners, a tough matchup against arguably the best defense in college football. And we've seen what it's gone like when Oklahoma played Texas, when Oklahoma plays South Carolina, and when Oklahoma's played Tennessee. 3 really, really good defenses, and it hasn't gone well. So that's where I'm at. Any final thoughts there before we get out of here, Jay?
Hopefully we show up. Hopefully we see a difference with this offense now that Kevin Johns and Joe John Finley are running things.
And I'm hoping that I am wrong once again and featured more heavily on freezing cold takes again next week. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Also go check out his channel, Unfair Sports on YouTube. Follow me at John 9 Williams, and the show is at Locked On Sooners on all the social media platforms as well. You can read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Boomer Sooner.